Hello everybody, today I'm watching The Presidential Assassination That Nobody Talks About by Salmonella Academy. I'm not even sure which president this is about. In the thumbnail it said Garfield. I've never even heard of a president who had that name, so let's check it out.
Hey kids, John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, Hitler, all people who gained massive notoriety by killing one of history's famous leaders. But there are two Americans who committed an equally heinous crime as these three, yet their stories are seldom remembered, mostly because nobody really cares about the presidents they killed. Originally I was going to talk about both of them, but the video ended up being way too long, so today we'll just stick to, this one I guess. Charles J. Guiteau was a pretty silly guy, and to understand how a guy could be so silly, you gotta start with his youth. Guiteau was born in Freeport, Illinois in 1841. His mom had postpartum psychosis and died when he was 7, alongside 3 of his 5 siblings. His dad, meanwhile, was mega religious and made a big point out of instilling those values in his son, often physically. This influence molded Charles into a boy who sought nothing short of total approval from others and who would react very harshly to any criticism levied upon him. As a teen, he moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan for high school. He tried to get into the university.
It's crazy how that was normal back in the day. Half of your siblings die. Just a normal Tuesday. These days, I can't imagine something like that.
Of Michigan, but he goofed on the entrance exam. So he did what anyone in his situation would do and said, well, so much for real life, I'm gonna join a commune. Specifically, he became part of the Oneida community in New York. In some aspects, this place was a pretty run-of-the-mill religious fellowship, from each according to their ability, to each according to their need, yada yada. But there are a couple of things that made it special. First off, they followed a doctrine known as Christian perfectionism, whereby everyone would strive to live their lives completely free of sin and reach a divine level of perfection while still completely free. Now this isn't really unique to Oneida, but whereas most people would achieve this through staunch discipline and careful self-reflection, these guys would just get together and take turns roasting the shit out of each and every member over any minute flaw they could possibly have. Real great for the psyche. They also practiced what was basically an early form of eugenics, where aspiring parents would have to submit an application and be judged by the committee on their moral and spiritual fortitude. If they were allowed to mate, children would be separated from the mom about a year after birth and raised communally in the children's wing. After all, wouldn't want any of those hopelessly flawed toddlers to think they're deserving of any affection whatsoever. Oneida also believed in what they called free love, which meant that anyone could bang anyone at any time, as long as they kept it hetero, and exclusive relationships of any kind were actually frowned upon, which seems like kind of a weird habit for people trying to 100% FC this whole Christianity thing, but...
That's literally the exact opposite of what they should be doing if they're trying to go for 100% perfect Christianity. You can't just fuck around with multiple people.
Whatever. But wait, you're saying, how can you have selective breeding at the same time as extremely unselective breeding? Aha! See, that's where male continence comes in. Under this rule, a pair could go at it for as long as they wanted, with the caveat that the dude's not allowed to nut, pull out or otherwise. That way, it's not a sin. After all, as the Bible says, if the dick don't spit, you must acquit. Paradoxically, no such rule existed for the women. In fact, not only did the commune believe in female orgasms, they actually prioritized them, which is like unheard of in the 19th century. They'd even have the middle-aged women of the society train the teen boys in the art of holding in the old pelvic sneeze. That way, there wouldn't be any chance of conception in case the guy goofs up his first few tries. So anyway, young Guiteau joins this whole thing, and endured countless blows to his massive yet
This place is so fucking weird. This makes no sense.
He's at least gonna get a piece of this communal action. Except, the criticism towards him wasn't just a formality like it was for others. Everyone there genuinely fucking hated him, on account of the fact that he was a raving neurotic narcissist. He never caught a single
that's
piece of his
why everyone hated him
then. And after a while, they all started calling him Charles Get Out in the hopes that he'd leave. This is real. And after 5 long years of this abuse, Guiteau finally got the hint and moved to New Jersey. He tried starting a newspaper themed around the Oneida religion called the Daily Theocrat, except nobody cared, so that failed. He went back to Oneida and tried to sue the place in order to get back pay for all his voluntary unpaid labor while living there. But apparently I'm mad butthurt isn't a valid reason for prosecution, so that went nowhere. No shit. Finally said, well...
Actually, that might be a valid reason for prosecution today. I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen, but I've read some articles about how apparently, I'm not sure what country this was, but apparently in some place, calling someone derogatory terms? Calling someone mean words can be punishable now. Like calling someone a bitch online can count as a crime now, somewhere. Or at least there's some sort of punishment for it. I don't know where that was, what article I read, but I heard about that. I don't want to believe it's true, but considering the direction where the Western world is heading, I would not be surprised if calling someone mean words online will soon be a crime. I'm quite sure it could very well happen. Just another reason to hate liberals.
When your devotion to God has failed you,
not that the
there's only one
Conservatives
path
are
in
really
life
any
left.
better, but
Time to become a lawyer.
still.
He managed to pass an examination to gain admission to the Illinois bar, and subsequently joined a law firm in Chicago at the age of 27, where he met his soon-to-be wife, one Annie Bunn. Of course, Guiteau never really got to be a lawyer. He only argued in one actual court case. Most of his time was spent doing bill collection for random clients. This job gave him insight into how debtors think and operate, which allowed him to turn into quite the con man, dodging bills whenever and wherever he saw the opportunity. Even on the job, he'd frequently charge exorbitant contingency fees after the fact, upwards of 75%. And sometimes he'd just keep it all and completely ghost his clients. After all, what are they gonna do? Send another bill collector? Well, it turns out they did, so Guiteau and his wife fled to New York. Here he ditched law and started getting into politics. Specifically, he wrote and delivered a speech in favor of Horace Greeley,
guy in politics,
1872 Democratic presidential candidate. And he somehow got it in his head that if Greeley won, his campaign would be so greatly indebted to him that they'd fulfill his desires to be the minister of Chile, as though a total rando like him could just name a job and it would be his. In reality, the speech was an incoherent name his desires to be the minister of Chile, as though a total rando like him could just, name a job and it would be his. In reality, the speech was an incoherent mess heard by next to no one, and Greeley lost by a landslide. As the years passed, Annie got real sick of living life on the run with a broke-ass bitch, and Charles was none too keen on her weighing him down either. But back in the day, you couldn't just divorce someone willy-nilly. You needed a valid reason for it. So Charles concocted the brilliant scheme of banging a prostitute and then having her testify in court. The plan worked, with the pair successfully divorcing in 1874, and the only downside was syphilis. Whoops. Guiteau started dabbling in...
shit. If the only way to divorce is if you say you cheated, if both parties want a divorce, just say you cheated, and there you go. You could easily get a divorce.
In theology again around this time. He published a book called The Truth, which was almost entirely plagiarized directly from John Noyes, the founder of the Oneida community. But despite being a man of God, Guiteau was still very much a two-time
Usually when something is called The Truth, it's full of lies.
Keep collectors off his tail. His brother caught wind of this and wrote him a letter basically saying, hey, maybe you should pay your bills now and then so you can be, a functioning member of society. To which Charles replied, and I quote, "Find $7 enclosed, stick it up your bunghole and wipe your nose on it, and that will remind you of the estimation in which you are held by Charles J. Guiteau." God damn. And to his own brother, the madman. Soon after, he got arrested, bailed out by his sister, lived with her for a few months, attacked her with an axe, went to DC, rambled about religion to anyone who would listen, moved to Boston, got in a boat accident where everyone in his boat was fine, but everyone in the other one fucking died, took this as a sign from God, moved back to New York, and got back into politics in 1880, this time as a Republican.
What is this guy's life?
There were two main factions of Republicans, known as the Stalwarts and the Half-Breeds, which sounds like some Tolkien shit, which we had names like that today. Guiteau considered himself a stalwart, and in a similar vein to his 1872 venture, he wrote a speech to promote stalwart candidate Ulysses S. Grant, who was shooting for his third term. But before he got a chance to deliver the speech, one James A. Garfield took the candidacy.
Oh, there's Garfield!
Nowhere, beating out both factions single-handedly. He was like, rats, how am I gonna get power handed to me now? So he literally just scribbled out all the references to Grant and replaced them with Garfield and was like, yep, that'll do it. He read this speech all of twice, along with handing out copies to the Republican National Committee. In reality, this really didn't accomplish much, but when Garfield managed to win the election, Guiteau was like, yes! That was entirely me! Garfield is in my supreme
So he's just delusional.
God is my witness. He shall make me a consulate in Vienna or Paris or someplace cool like that. He went to DC to await his inevitable appointment, but obviously nothing happened. So he started writing letters. A lot of letters. When that didn't work, he started actually stalking both Garfield and the Secretary of State, James Blaine, intercepting them in hotel lobbies, just being like, oh hey, yeah, it's me, the sole person responsible for your success. Say, how about a consulship? Alright, you'll get back to me, I get it. Whoa, haha. What a coincidence.
Honestly,
Me
couldn't
again.
they just,
How's that
like,
consulship coming?
arrest
At first, they
him for
simply ignored
harassment
him, but
and
eventually
stalking?
Blaine snapped, screaming,
Or was
"Never
that not a
speak
thing
to
back
me
then?
again on the Paris consulship as long as you live."
Damn you, Garfield!
I sense a disturbance in
Poor
the
Garfield.
force. Maybe daylight savings just made Monday an hour longer.
Wow, Garfield, that was quite the wisecrack. It's amazing how you manage to keep things fresh year after year.
Burn in hell, beige dog. At this point, Guiteau completely renounced any faith in the current administration, and after a lifetime of clout chasing met only with disappointment, he decided his only option was
That sounds like the majority of people these days.
That it was now God's will to remove Garfield
Hell, it's
from this
it's
mortal
me!
plane in order to put his stalwart vice president, Chester Alan Arthur, into power. When he went to buy a revolver, he was given the choice between a wood grip and an ivory grip. He went with the ivory one for no other reason than he thought it would look cooler in a museum, and on July 2nd, 1881,
Oh my God.
he
He
ambushed
knows.
Garfield at the Baltimore and Potomac
He knows it's gonna
railway
end up in a
station,
museum.
shooting him twice in the back and mortally wounding him, all because he wouldn't give him a job. Garfield managed to hang on for 11 weeks before finally dying. which sounds
11
like
weeks?
hell.
Damn.
Today's modern physicians actually believe that Garfield could have easily survived the incident if it weren't for doctors digging through him with unsanitized tools. Hey, modern medicine, thanks
Wow.
for not being worse than literally no
Damn.
medicine. It means a lot. But that didn't stop Guiteau from being formally
I mean, this was
charged
what,
with
in
murder.
the
And that's
1800s?
exactly
You
what
can't
he
expect
wanted.
them
Matter
to
of
be
fact,
able to
Guiteau
save
was
someone
over
from
the moon,
gunshot
taking
wounds
his new
easily.
nationwide infamy as the fame he always deserved. His trial was just bananas.
I mean, saving someone from a gunshot wound is difficult in today's day and age. This was 150 years ago. How difficult was it back then to save someone from being shot with a gun? The fact they managed to get him to hang on for 11 weeks was impressive as hell.
With Guiteau hurling obscenities at just about everyone there, including his own defense team, and formatting his testimony.
I mean, I guess it also depends where he was shot and if it hit any
He even
internal
dictated
organs.
an autobiography to the
Like
New
any
York
vital
Herald,
points.
Which, get this, he ended with a personal ad for a nice Christian lady under 30 years of age. What a baller. When the guilty verdict was read, he called everybody there low consummate jackasses. And on June 30th, 1882, Guiteau smiled and waved to his adoring fans as he was walked to the gallows, where he recited a repetitive, deranged poem he wrote that morning, which was performed
Is
in
he
a
allowed to
high-pitched
talk?
falsetto voice, since it was written in the point of view of a child. He asked for a full orchestra to play during the reading, which I don't have to tell you that went nowhere. And promptly thereafter, he was hung. When the gallows dropped, people were probably like, "Ugh, Jesus, it's finally over. I just came in for a nice little execution. They subject me to all that? I want my money back, frankly." So it just goes to show,
Let's be honest, who was really punished? Was it him or the people who had to listen to his speech?
you can't always get what you want. Unless
The
that
people
thing
who
is
had to
getting
listen to
everyone
his
to
speech.
hate
They're
you,
the real
that's
victims.
extraordinarily easy. But for everything else, you're gonna need a combination of hard work and know-how. While the former must ultimately come from within, there's plenty of resources out there for the latter. The best of which is a seldom talked about little startup called Skillshare.
Yeah, I'm not surprised no one really talks about this assassination because, I mean, did President Garfield achieve anything impressive during his presidency? Was he like an important president? I'm assuming he wasn't, considering no one talks about it. Apparently no one talks about it. And he probably just had a normal presidency with nothing crazy going on. So he just wasn't really that important. I mean, the most important presidential assassinations in the US are definitely John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. Because, well, they were executed for certain reasons. This guy was just executed because this guy, the assassin, didn't like him. The people who executed Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy had actual reasons, you know. This was just pure hatred, dislike. Because the guy who assassinated Garfield was delusional. And that's really it. Yeah, that's the end of the video. Leave a like, subscribe, comment. The link to my Discord server is down in the description below, so check that out if you want. And I will see you in the next video.